Maurice Bishop and the new Jewel Movement. All this has to stop. People are being cheated and have been cheated too long by both parties for over 20 years. Nobody's asking what the people want. We suffer low wages and high cost of living while politicians get richer, live in bigger houses, and drive around in even bigger cars. The government has done nothing to help people with decent housing. Most people still have to walk miles to get water to drink after 22 years of politicians. We believe that our main concern to us all is, one, to prevent the daily rise of our prices for our food and clothing and other essential. It's unbelievable, but the price that you get for a pound of cocoa isn't even half a pound of fish. And two, develop a concrete program to raise the standards of housing, living, education, health, and food and recreation of all people. Building our national economy. A quote from this section put many people in panic. This means that our first priority must be the complete nationalism of all foreign-owned hotels, as well as foreign-owned housing settlements, such as Western Thought. Also, in our negotiation with the British on the question of independence, we could have demanded from them an independence payment of at least $100 million as partial reparations to make up the sum for the money stolen from us in exploitation, human misery, suffering, and degradation we have endured at their hands for the last 400 years. The independent part of the manifesto, the quality of leadership is discussed. For example, leaders should instead regard themselves as servants of the people and that aims at destroying the relationship of the master-slave, employer-employee, and of destroying the whole class system in our society. The new society must not only speak of democracy, but must be practiced in all of its aspects. We stress the policy of self-reliance, self-sufficiency, undertaken cooperatively, and reject the easy approaches offered by aid and financial and foreign assistance. We have to recognize that our most important resource is our people. The present problem is we import most of our food from abroad and have to pay very high prices for it. Very little land is being used to production of local food. Most of the cultivated land is being taken up to exporting cocoa, nutmeg, and bananas to export market. We need a national food strategy which will link up our agriculture plan to provide our local food consumption. Right now, we import more than half the food we eat, and we call ourselves an agricultural country. This plan must provide supplies of meat, vegetables, provisions, milk products. Here we must stress the increased production of tomato, eggplant, hot and sweet pepper, lettuce, parsley, spinach, cabbage, cauliflower, snap beans, lima beans, black-eyed peas, pigeon peas, soya beans, cucumbers, melons, muskmelons, pumpkins, beetroots, carrots, onions, sweet potatoes, yards, okra, and corn. It costs too much to build a house because we do not use local materials. We have to borrow money from foreign banks at high interest rate to buy cement made outside of Grenada to pay foreign-made furniture. Then we must face high costs of buying or renting a spot and the high cost of sand and gravel and carrying it to the site. What is needed is the creation of a national low-cost housing plan which uses local materials like wood and high-quality clay for bricks and river sand. These houses must be built collaboratively. Like in the old days when Maroons were older and were the order of the day, and with government citizens' violence. There has never been a proper survey made of the natural resources and raw materials available for the construction of houses, schools, hospitals, churches, and so on. This must be done now. With clothing, the problem here is we import most of the clothing and materials from abroad, and then made to buy them at high prices. On top of this, frequently is the clothing suitable for our climate. What is required is a revival of the cotton industry in Caracas to provide basic raw material for local textile and garment industry to supply all the clothing needs for the state. We are not talking about simple exporting the cotton abroad as in the past, where they made clothing out of it and send it back to us 3 times the price. Instead, we will keep this money and make the shirts, dresses, pants, and etc. ourselves in our own garment factories that made the same clothing. We will use local designs and styles in our factories and import them to the colonial jackets and ties. We will create a major outlet for many of our young and talented people whom already have acquired this skill. The education plan for economic development of Grenada consists of 4 basic sectors: 1, agriculture, 2, fisheries, 3, agro-industry, and 4, new tourism. None of these is being taught in a systematic way in our primary or secondary schools. If we are serious about having an education system that serves the people, the needs of the people for a better standard of life, then the curriculum, what is taught of both primary and secondary schools, must run the teaching of these subjects in an organized, regularly, imaginative, and practical way. Our school leaders must be equipped with the basic skills of requiring expanding agricultural and fishery sectors, for running the factories and producing goods coming from these sectors, for running hotels, restaurants, and facilities, and expanding locally owned and controlled tourist industry. High quality education in primary and secondary school levels should not be the privilege of the middle class or the very few lucky enough to receive scholarships. We propose a carefully worked out plan of free secondary education throughout the island. We believe the schools must train our young people in society so they become an active part of the community. What we propose is the creation of what we call freedom schools. At these schools, our people will be given the opportunity to acquire certain basic skills such as competence in agricultural techniques, boat building, craftsmanship, first aid, simple medicine, typing, shorthand, and an intense focus on areas outside of St. George where the greatest needs for our people have been neglected too long. These schools will provide basic information on the matters affecting us in our daily life. For example, family life education, explanations of the law and practice, elementary principles of taxation, reading and writing, black history, geography, and elementary economics. These schools will be independent from the present school system and will be staffed by volunteers. The wealth of the nation depends on the health of its people. If we're serious about raising the standard of living of our people, it is very important that we make sure that our people are healthy and have cheap and readable facilities that keep good health. The present problem is our high cost of seeking medical attention, the high price of buying medicines and drugs, a very poor ambulance service, and a scarcity of basic items such as bandage, tables, bloods in the 3 hospitals of Grenada and Coxville and the various state visiting stations. High quality of medical attention we feel must be a right, not a privilege. We all need to be healthy to continue our work and develop the country. Our children must be healthy to learn. We propose the creation of a national sewer scheme to help ensure the beaches and the seas around us do not become polluted, thus creating health hazard. We will make sure that the drains are properly maintained and that new modern drains are built. We provide the necessary man and equipment to ensure that garbage is removed thoroughly and regularly. The entire water supply will be consistently checked, filtered, and purified before being supplied to the public. All meats, milk, and other food commodities will be regularly inspected by the properly trained public health inspectors. We will begin this program to design to wipe out completely mosquitoes, bats, and other pests in the state. In addition to under our health proposals, we advocate 1. Free psychiatric and mental health treatment for all persons in the states. 2. As a special priority, building of houses for the old and needy. 3. The provision of adequate physical facilities for the proper geriatric treatment for the old. First priority will all be given to the older folks. They have labored long, and as a people, we must prepare them and willing to care for them adequately without cost. 4. Free dental treatment for all people, particularly pensioners and school children. And 5. The creation of community centers in every village with a planned program of activities. 6. A national youth development committee to be controlled and ran by the youth of the state. All existing youth organizations, in particular the Grenada Assembly of Youth, will be invited to contribute ideas and personnel to the committee. Apart from organizing activities for its membership, the committee will invite to participate other national bodies concerned with public affairs. The committee will have one of its main functions, the implementing of the program designed to raise the level of the national consciousness through the state. 7. The present house of refuge or the poorhouse will be renovated and its facilities updated to ensure comfort of its residents. 8. All organizations in the states running charitable institutions will be given encouragement to continue and expand their efforts. 9. We believe the present policy of the administrations of the prisons overstress punishment. We will ensure that all offenders who are convicted are treated as human beings while they are in prison and given the opportunity to acquire a skill which can benefit them on their return to society. Proper separate facilities and programs for rehabilitating youth offenders in particular will be created. Our policy on trade is to cut down imports as much as possible, and we have shown many ways of doing so early in the manifesto. These goods will continue to import because we cannot produce ourselves, from which we import only from North America and Europe. We want instead to try to get cheaper price elsewhere when available from countries in Latin and the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. Both the shipping costs of our imports and exports are very high and use of a lot of foreign exchange. Instead, we intend to join with other Caribbean and third world nations in developing our own shipping line to carry goods more cheaply and keep the profit local. At present, we only export cocoa, nutmeg, and bananas. In the future plans of our agriculture and agro-industry, we intend to import a large range of agricultural and agro-industry commodities, not only to the big North American and European markets, but also to Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and other countries in the Caribbean. We believe no country can be independent unless it owns and controls the banks and insurance companies. No matter how great the plan for agriculture and agro industry, tourism, and fishing are, if the foreign-owned banks decide they are not lending any money to our farmers and fishermen, etc., to develop these industries, then all plans burst up. And we know that we are just what the banks are doing. They are lending money left and right to buy cars, radiograms, and other things which cannot produce food for us to eat. And we had to buy at fat prices from the same countries the banks come from. But our farmers and small businessmen catch hell for getting a loan from them. Yet all the money they have in the banks is our local money. It is deposit they use to lend to people to buy cars instead of loans to produce more goods and develop new industry. On top of this, they take their fat profits out of our country daily, and we will put an end to this boom. Our plan is to nationalize the bank at an earliest correct opportunity and use the money to finance direct agriculture and agro-industry schemes, as well as our new plans in tourism, fisheries earlier outlined. We need to produce more goods in every sector in every part of the island. It is for this reason we condemn foreign ownership of our banks. In fact, Grenadians already possess the necessary skills to put use of their foreign capitals. The new banks will be controlled and directed by a central bank. One of the main functions of the central bank will be to make sure the loans available to these banks provide housing, small farmers, fishermen, and co-optives, setting up the agricultural industries and expansion of our new tourist industry. These new banks will continue to employ as their staffs in person engage in the industry. Most of what is said about the banking system is true about the insurance companies. Nearly half of them are foreign-owned. Nearly all of them are foreign-owned. And they are taking a large amount of money from Canadians in premium. And they are taking out fat profits of the islands all the time. Our plan is to phase out foreign-owned insurance companies and set up one large government insurance company to handle all forms of insurance and to keep the profits in the country. The sources of finance of all these projects will come from 1. Government revenue and taxation, 2. Government revenues from collecting the profits from banks, insurance companies, and formerly foreign-owned hotels, 3. Loans from the government-owned banking system, 4. Local private investors, 5. Commercial loans from banks in other countries. These loans can be repaid out of the profits made from using that money. 6. Loans from international financial institutions like the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and so on. It is worth noting that a recent report by Sir Arthur Lewis, the president of the Caribbean Development Bank, he pointed out that some millions were awaiting Grenada and other few islands, but the money available cannot be touched because of the corruption and the lack of planning that exists in these islands. 7. Foreign aid from foreign countries can be provided. There is no string attached. 8. The profits from the agriculture and agro industry and fishing sectors to be reinvested in these same sectors for the expansion for even bigger. 9. Organizations such as credit unions, friendly societies, cooperative organizations for nutmeg, banana, and cocoa. Producers and people of these operation methods of savings like the Suzu will be encouraged to invest in their savings. 10. It should also be pointed out that cutting down the ridiculous costs involved in our present political administration, with the boo-boo salaries going to the premier and other ministers, paramilitary secretaries, governor, speakers, top civil servants, the 82 so-called Farmers Club, secret police, etc. The company will be able to make great savings. Likewise, all the money being wasted on prestige dream projects such as roundabouts and independence celebration will now be available for constructive policy spending. The people in the law, the police force. The public as a whole, the members of the Grenadian police force are subject to hatred, fear, and a poppy show. The images of the force that is a group of people whose only function is to protect the private property of a chosen few and to assist the regime in keeping power and keep the masses in their place despite the hunger, starvation, and injustice that exists everywhere in our society. The shooting of 10 unarmed demonstrators at Perros Airport, April of 1973, is a good example of this. It is a system of recruitment to the force rather than the present members who are to blame for the image and practice which take place in the name of law and order. 1. The police receive improper or no training. 2. They work long hours and irregular hours. 3. They are away from their families and local community for long periods of time. 4. They abuse the public for acts of physical violence and they are commanded to take against our citizens. 5. A person with a known criminal record being recruited in the force. If the new and just society be created, in which there is equality before the law, the role of police must be new and different. Persons seeking to join the new service must possess basic qualities of leadership, intelligence, good character, discipline, and social sense. The teaching of West Indian history, community relations, economic, and law will enable a new breed of policemen and women to have a balanced outlook and no longer be the robots of today. We stress the importance of having a police commissioner come from the ranks of service, making sure that he or she will be responsible for the country as a whole of the official actions. We recommend 1. A strong police association to bargain for members. 2. Police officers reside and work in the areas in which they live. 3. The transfer of members away from their families be stopped. 4. The police have regular hours of work and overtime pay for extra hours work. 5. There will be greater involvement by the police in social work. 6. That known criminals be removed. And 7. The word royal and first will be removed from the name of the Ghanaian Police Services. $1,000 will be saved from the present sums paid to Gary Secret Police, which instead has helped achieve the main objective things. The People Court. The court should be comprised of elected villagers who deal with antisocial behavior from the villagers themselves, i.e. petty theft, absence of children from their school, drunken and young offenders. The sentence from these courts will be imposition from a small fines to compulsory community work. We feel that we've been tried by our neighbors and friends will help reduce the antisocial behavior and assist in promoting a sense of responsibility and community. On February 7, 1974, we're supposed to become independent. If we do, this will be independence in name only. Gary believed that independence means pulling down one flag and put up another, composing a new national anthem, creating a new motto, calling the governor, governor general, and the premier, the prime minister, instead of a steel blend jumping up and down, fetting, cleaning up, and beautifying the streets. But after all the celebration and the bacchanal is over, we wake up the next day or the next week with a hangover. The food prices and clothing and everything else will still keep going up. Wages will still be the same or less. The condition of schools, hospitals, and roads, except for maybe 2 or more roundabouts, will continue to get worse, and the people housing will never be the same or worse. Our People Convention of Independence on May 7th, 1983, at the Simoon, where 10,000 of our supporters were present, 2 major speeches were called The Meaningful versus the Meaningless Independence and The New Direction of Genuine Independence. This manifesto of ours sketches the things we must do as a people under new leadership to achieve real independence. If we believe independence must mean better housing for our people, better clothing, better food, better health, better education, better roads, bus service, more jobs, higher wages, more recreation in short, a higher standard of living for our children and workers, none of these things can be achieved by celebrations, fiats, or big boys, incompetent corrupt leadership, or a dreaming of a 10-guy politician and a substitute for hard work and planning. The qualities of our leadership under the present independence that we believe that must be the only way present of our message, new, progressive, dynamic, imaginative, honest, hardworking leadership to take power. This leadership must work closely with the people of every village, helping them to organize and improve their skills and carry out their ideas for a better life. Our goal is eventually to replace the old present political system with a new, truly democratic grassroots system in which people of every village and parish of the island as a whole will be able to exercise their power on their own behalf and their own interests to build a bright future for themselves. We feel that leaders are not necessarily born or come from the East, but are made. We feel no small groups of persons, regardless how intelligent or educated or wealthy they are, have the right to sit down together in a small room and proclaim themselves the new messiahs. Rather, leadership must come from the people and must be accepted by the people, not because of the way they look, dress, or speak, but because of their proven commitments, dedication, and hard work in the interest of the people. Leaders are not required to know everything better than the people or more intelligent than people. Leadership must not mean the creation of masters. Leadership instead regards itself as servants of the people and aim at destroying the relationship of the master-slave, employer-employee, and destruction of the whole class relationship in our society. Our aims, in the words of President Jewel Movement of Tanzania, is to make every person a master, not a matter of who opposes the other, but who serves himself. A person who serves himself is a master. He has no worries, he is confident in himself, and confident in his own actions. In the future, every representative of the people must be required to live by a code of ethics and agreed by the people after consultation. All present parliamentarians will be required to account to election of the people tribunal for their ill-gotten gains. History has shown us that only those countries where people struggled and fought for the achievement of their independence, that independence had become a reality. In those countries where people have been shut out of the process of attaining independence, like in Trinidad, the people find themselves engaged in a violent struggle against the government who has cheated them of the fruits and expectations and promise of independence. Trinidad today, after 11 years of independence, has finally gone around the country in an attempt to counsel with the people and drafted an independence constitution for Trinidad. If Gary has his way, we will find ourselves having to do the same thing at a future date. But praise God, the people in the NJM, the New Jewel Movement, will not let them have a chance to play the fool with us. We repeat the present moves with independence and an insecure opportunist move, designed to strengthen the grip of tyranny and corruption. It is the bound to resort in a sham and bogus meaningless independence. The new society must not only speak of democracy, but must practice it in all its aspects. We must stress the policy of self-reliance and self-sufficient, undertaken cooperatively, and reject the easy approaches offered by aid and foreign assistance. We will have to recognize that our most important resource is our people. That's from my ancestor, the Honorable Maurice Bishop, dropping rules and knowledge of the New Jewel Movement. Something that we need to emulate here on the grassroots level everywhere we go. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said before, much love to his ancestors, and hope you learn something. Right on to the